Hi, I'm Robert Suter, Statewide Veterinary Officer of Sheep with Agriculture Victoria, and here we are with some sheep's guts. So we have here some sheep's guts that have been harvested from an abattoir. This one's not quite the abattoir example because they've actually left the rumen, the paunch on the front end. So this is where the food first goes into, and this is where you see the effects of grain poisoning. We have the omasum there, and this is the abomasum here, which is the most important organ as far as worms are concerned. If we just follow our way right down the tract, so we have the start of the small intestine here, and that wanders through here, and this is all small intestine here, and then that progresses around and joins the cecum, which is this big sac here. In people, that's only about the size of my thumb, and then it goes into the large intestine. So now let's work our way backwards in this sheep. So in the large intestine, there are a small number of worm species, but they're actually not that important as far as disease in sheep goes. We come through to the cecum, and probably the key thing of value at this area here, which is a bit hard to find in a real sheep, is this is where you'll find ovine Johne's disease. So the main change is a thickening and a corrugation of the lining of the gut. So this, you can see how thin this bit of cecum is, like a sausage skin. When it gets ovine Johne's disease, it's really thick, really corrugated, especially if you open it up, almost like a washing machine discharge hose. That's how thick it comes. We come into the small intestine, which, as you can see, the difference in diameter here between that and the large intestine. At the back end of this, you might find some of the worms that in general aren't that important. Tapeworms are found in here, the big flat white segments that everyone can see, and they're passed out in the droppings of sheep, and they look quite dramatic, but they actually don't cause any disease or production loss. We can also find Nematodurus, the thin-necked stomach worm, and that's quite a long worm, about that long, that amount in length, and occasionally in lambs that can cause disease on its own, in winter-born lambs, because the larvae of those worms hatches inside the egg and then can survive frost. But the real action in sheep, the important scour worms and also Barber's pole worm, are found in the front part of the small intestine, where it comes in to the abomasum. So here in the small intestine, where it heads out and around and back into the rest of the guts, that's where we'll find Trichostrongylus, the black scour worm. Now that's a pretty nasty worm. 5,000 of them will kill a lamb. Now 5,000 sounds a lot, but if we compare it to the worms at the back of the gut, you might need 40,000 of them to cause the same amount of damage. So that causes scouring, weight loss, diarrhea and death in lambs. Here is the fourth stomach, the abomasum, and that's where we find some of the very important worms in sheep. The Barber's pole worm and Ostatagia, or the brown stomach worm. There's Telodorsagia circumcincta, which is the brown stomach worm, and that causes diarrhea and weight loss, and has a similar effect as Trichostrongylus in killing sheep with a small number of worms. The other one, which is not so widespread in Victoria but pops up occasionally, is Barber's pole worm, and that gets its name. You'll actually be able to see it in the abomasum when it's present, and because it's a blood-sucking worm, what you see is a spiral of the blood-filled gut going around the oviduct in the female worms, and that's where it gets its name from. So that worm can make lambs look pretty sick when you've only got a pretty low egg count, 300 or 400 eggs per gram of that. Causes anemia, and oftentimes the first thing that producers see is sudden death. They just find the sheep dying quickly. That one is associated with warm summer weather, warm and moist, summer weather. So it's quite common in East Gippsland, but we see it occasionally on farms right across the state. The scour worms, so the brown stomach worm and the black scour worm, they're winter active worms, typically causing diarrhea and dags that we see in sheep. The other important worm in sheep, we haven't got any of that here, or yes we have. No, we haven't. We haven't got any of it here. That is the spleen rather than the liver, but the liver of sheep contains liver fluke. You know, it's going to look a similar sort of colour to that in this preserved specimen, but we all know what a sheep's liver looks like. That's associated with the wetter, swampy areas where there's water lying around in summertime and the host snail, and that can cause disease in sheep. So we've got a fair bit of gut here, you know, 30 or 40 feet or 10 metres or so of small intestine in sheep, but the real action as far as disease occurs is up in the front end here. So that's where you'll find what worms?